Welcome to episode 5 of the Carlson Cards podcast, where we interview collectors to learn more about their strategies and ways they navigate the sports card hobby. Ultimately, with the hope that you and myself can take something away from these interviews and really apply them as we develop our collections moving forward. I hope you're ready for this one because it was such a blast. Today's collector I've talked to for probably 3, 4, 5 months on Instagram have always seemed like it would be a blast to get to know them a little better. Had him on the podcast. It turns out it was a blast. Chris is a huge collector of the Baltimore Ravens and really has a ton of nostalgia, having been to a lot of really important games for that franchise. He not only collects Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Joe Flacco, those kind of guys, he also is a big collector of Kobe Bryant and Alex Rodriguez, just to name a few. This episode was a blast, and I hope you guys really enjoy. Let's get over to the interview. Awesome. So welcome everyone to episode 5 of the Carlson Cards podcast. I'm joined today by a guest that I have chatted with for a long time on Instagram, but I have never met. So this will be the first time virtually we're talking, and I'm just really looking forward to it. So we have Chris, goes by C Dice Cards. Is that how I say that right?
That's it. Yep.
On Instagram. So if you don't follow him, be sure to follow already. Really looking forward to this discussion. So Chris, one thing I had to ask, I'm going to jump freaking right in before we even talk about your background. You just picked up like an incredible card. So I wanted to ask about that. And again, on YouTube, I'll share it. So anyone who's watching YouTube can see this on the podcast. You know, if you could just describe this card and explain what happened, how did you get it? And, you know, everything. I know I had a little bit of a part to play in it, but I'd love to hear a little more from your side of things.
Yeah, I guess that's why I'm on the pod is I was, I still buy on eBay and I buy on IG, but I haven't really dug deep into ComC besides what I would see on eBay. And you had just told me that tip, like, hey, sometimes the prices are different on ComC than they are on eBay. So as soon as I looked on there, I saw that this seller evidently ran a sale on the whole page, maybe 60% off. And at the dollar that I saw it sitting at, I was like, all right, I can move some stuff to get this Ray Lewis card. Just a wild card. Finest is awesome. I love O2 Finest. You just completed your little gold run, I guess. And I see 2002 all the time, and I love that. Only thing I have from O2 is the Ed Reed refractor, but those O2s are awesome. This is probably my second favorite year, and there's not a lot of superfractors sitting out there. I know you're running the Rainbow of Ray right now a little bit, so I kind of disrupted it, but it's mine, man. It's in the collection, the 101. It's just, I mean, it's Ray going right into his Super Bowl, you know, it's prime Ray. Look at him there. It's just wild.
Yeah, just an incredible card. And yeah, it's funny you mentioned. So I had started looking at some other players, and Ray Lewis is one that kept popping up. He's like on every top list of top defensive player ever. You know, obviously Super Bowl champion, I think 2 times, right?
Yep.
Both decades really, which is kind of crazy. And then I know, you mentioned we were chatting, and this 05 Super was sitting on eBay forever. And I was like, this would be so cool to get. And then it was on ComC, and I sent an offer on it. He declined it. And then I know, like you said, we chatted, you pulled the trigger, and it's one of those moments where it's like, if I don't get the card, but then somebody who really loves it gets it, I'm super happy.
I appreciate that.
I'm sure you're the same way, but like a crazy card like this, you miss out on it. Then it's back on eBay for 5 times the price the next week. And I always just shake my head. I'm like, dang, how did I let that happen?
Yeah. This one will not be back on eBay or any other sales site. So it's staying in the PC. I'm looking to get it graded. It's really clean. I'd love to know the story behind who owned it, who pulled it. It just I love to know the story behind the card, and I don't have that with it just sitting on ComC without being able to chat with anyone. So let's put that out there to whoever owned it. Let's chat and see where it came from. So I talked to a lot of collectors that have some of these Volink cards. He has 2 of them. He actually said a rando was Drew Bennett, the one that he has. And I was like, dude, Drew Bennett was like an awesome fantasy guy. Like, I know who Drew Bennett is. And his other one is Steve McNair. So just that's my first finest for this year. And instead of going in for the, to 199 to 250s, I just went in for the big one. And I'm pumped to have it, man.
Yeah, that's a good point you threw in at the end there. I wanted to maybe if we could step through that for a second too, but we got to do your background, because I bet you a lot of people you're new to some faces. So, but you mentioned too, not grabbing the out of 199, instead grabbing this crazy superfractor out of 1, obviously much more expensive, but how I guess, could you extrapolate on that thought? Because I've thought a lot about that as well, right? Like you see these crazy collectors, and some of them that I've interviewed, it's like they always grab the out of 10s that never, ever, ever appear, instead of grabbing the out of 99 that, yes, it's a tenth of the price, but there's one at auction every month, like that sort of thing. Do you have anything to add there? I just love if you could touch on that a little bit.
It's definitely through, since I came back in 2020, it's definitely been, that's the learning curve. It's like, yeah, you can pick up all these, but if you have that list of like, I mean, this one's been staring at me, Austin. It's been staring at me like every week. I go on and look, and like that's at the top of my watch list, and it's like, all right, we just got to get that one. I've done a lot of the grabbing the higher numbered cards and stuff like that, but it's having like something that everyone else wants as well that they're not going to get now. But also, I don't have the time like I used to just start grabbing all these different cards and grading all these different cards. I was telling you, before we talked, I got 2 kids under 2.5. One's 5 weeks old. So, finding the time to do anything and just pick up all these little cards and try to do the grade. It's not in the wheelhouse right now. I've been consigning cards for the first time, and that's helped me kind of get into some of these cards that are just like wild to me, that in 2020, 2021, these were not cards that I was going to have ever. So this dip in the market is welcomed. It's awesome. It's awesome.
That's amazing. And thanks for the input there. And actually, this is the perfect segue because you touched on it a little bit already, but I'd love to hear that journey for you coming into the hobby, because actually, funny enough, I was also 2020, right? So we're around the same time frame. I'd love to learn a little more about your evolution. And if you could even just touch on a little bit, like, how that was. It sounds like you maybe got in right before you had kids, and then now you have kids, like that difference. Could you touch on, again, just your journey, and then maybe throw the kids in there where applicable?
Yeah. 2020 pandemic hit. We were doing the Zoom happy hours with some buddies, and I think it was like 15 of it. Was pretty much our home fantasy football league. So we're just chatting. We're doing like these, happy hour gift exchanges where we send everybody, like a gift, and like they're all opening that day. And we just all started talking about cards. I started listening to some podcasts, hearing about cards. And we all had cards. Me and my brother, we were up at the card store, in our first neighborhood all through the 90s. I was born in 89 and he was born in 90. We were all collecting. We all collected Pokemon. Right up the street from us, we could walk to a huge yard sale. A flea market. The flea market used to be a drive-in movie theater. So there was a huge outdoor area. I mean, just imagine how big that is. All outdoor. But then the indoor area had all the cards. And there was always cards. And I was just laughing about it, kind of thinking about when we were going on this podcast, is there was a time where we were probably 9 or 10, maybe 8 to 10 years old between all of us, and we got our first table. And it was mostly Pokemon. I'll never forget, my buddy sold a couple things, and it probably wasn't even just cards. We were probably just selling anything that was at our house. And he went and bought a pack of cards and pulled a Blastoise, probably like a base set Blastoise. And I'll never forget, he sold it for $50 right then. Like, nothing's changed since the 90s on that kind of stuff. It's like some people get a good card and they move it right away, but I'm like, man, if he had that Blastoise still, like, that's a story, So that's kind of where are we going with this?
That's where you started. I'll guide.
Yeah.
That's where you started. It sounds like when you're a kid, and then sounds like you got back in with the buddies. Maybe I'll steer you this way. So because it is a broad question. So you came in at 2020. How did you find your lane you're in now? Like, how did that kind of happen? Did you always just know you wanted to do Ravens cards? You want to do a little bit of Legends on the side as well? Like, what was that journey? Because maybe too, it helps if when I started, it was getting forced down our throats was the base cards for the NBA, players of that Zion, Ja, stuff like that. It was like buying second-year Lucas and grading them and then losing $20 a card because I didn't know what I was doing, right? Like, did you have that story? Or did you come in and you just found the right lane right away? Or like, what was that kind of thing like for you?
I think my Instagram makes it look like I went right into that lane, but I definitely didn't. But in a way I did. When we were going to the LCS, it's a great shop, and I'll shout them out, Bel Air Sports Cards. We were in there with masks every day. They were so good about having sanitizer out. And that's just kind of how it was back then. But that's when we got back into it. But we were all opening like packs and stuff like that. But I was always grabbing cards. Like, I wanted the singles. I remember the first single I bought when I got back, and this was before like the base card really started pumping, was the 1996 Topps Chrome Michael Jordan. It wasn't the refractor, it was just the base. I think it was like $300. And I was like, this is I still have it. Like, that's like one of the first cards I got when I got back in. And the owner always knew, like, when I was in there, like, I was looking for those kind of cards. I was looking for singles, a little bit more risk averse to opening. So I always had that. But when cards were just going up, you couldn't help but kind of, go to Target, open some stuff, grade it, and try to sell it. But that quickly for me, just like it wasn't it. I hardly have any of those cards that I graded and wanted to like make money on. So everything goes towards the Ray Lewis's, the Flaccos, everything that's in my PC. And I know we'll get to the Mount Rushmore, but yeah, that's the focus now. And it's so easy to see now how the collectors, IG is what really has helped me kind of stay in that lane where you see these people that's what their collection is. And even you and I, we started chatting on like a lot of the Topps Chrome stuff. I think we really started chatting when I found that crazy Ovechkin Playmakers Theater at Chantilly show for $10. It was $20. I got it for 10 and graded. They got a 9. I'm just like that's the cards that I want to find. And that was just a diamond in the rough there.
That's awesome. So one thing too, I wanted to just make sure I guess let you expand on as well. So like my wife and I are at the point, obviously, like looking to have kids, like excited about that. And I'm like it's like I have 2 full-time jobs right now. It's kind of fun. I work as an engineer, but then I'm also doing cards in the afternoons and on the weekends. I know that's going to have to change when we do have kids. Like, did you have that kind of realization, or was it more or less like you just kind of slowly, shifted for you out of necessity, or were you pretty deliberate about like, hey, I'm not going to waste my time doing X, Y, and Z. I'm going to focus on these kind of things of the hobby. Like, did you have any of that thought process?
It's more deliberate. Like your collecting becomes more deliberate because you don't have the time that you had before. Going to daycare, picking up from daycare. It's like all these hours are gone that you really start focusing. You negotiate. Like if there's a card you want, you negotiate less because you're like, all right, let's got to get this done. If it's a card that's going in the PC, like we're just going to get it done. I don't have the time to go back and forth and do all that. So the cards that I have, I look at myself as a collector, so I probably have paid top dollar for a lot of them, but I don't plan on selling them. So it's a time thing. And, that's kind of what you run into. So like we have a 5-week-old now, she's an angel. So that makes it very easy. And he turned 2 in March. So that's the one that has a lot of the attention. It's a lot of one-on-one time, but it's all worth it, man. It's nice that I have some cards that I'll be able to show him, and he's already in. He wants to just grab them and throw them, but he's already like interested. He sees them, so it's fun, man. It's really fun.
Well, he saw you fling that one. No, I'm just kidding. He didn't. No, that's great. I appreciate the insight there. And like one thing with it too, I just wanted to ask as well, like, are you looking forward or to expect your kids to like be involved with you with the hobby? Like, are you going to kind of slowly ease them into it, or like, is it more of a thing if they kind of show interest, you'll, teach them about it, but if they don't, just kind of let them do their own thing? Like, what's your thought process there?
Yeah, I should start posting more on my card IG, but on my personal IG, me and Cameron every Saturday go out to estate sales. And it's like, this estate sale we went to last week was like 15 all people with white hair. And then me and Cam, like walking through this place and just like trying to find stuff. And then we'll hit the farmer's market, but we're yard selling every Saturday right now. It's just so fun. And I let him pick up a few things, and we pick up lacrosse sticks, soccer balls, and I let him hand over the money. So I could totally see him getting into it, but that'll just be because he sees it. The yard sale thing is so fun.
That's awesome. And it's kind of like, I just thought of this too. It's kind of funny now. I think there's like almost, I don't know how accurate this statement is, but like the hobby seems like a lot more of a space now where like the people I interact with, at least a lot of them have really young kids. And I feel like in the 90s, there was the story, at least that I kept hearing of, we were into cards as kids. Then we grew up, we had kids, kind of got busy, got out of cards. It's like, I feel like I'm seeing a lot of people who have really stuck with it right now. I know I interviewed Paul as well. And like, he kind of was similar where he has the kids now and still collects a lot. It's kind of interesting to me. I don't know. Do you feel like there's some difference now versus the 90s that would cause that? Again, hard question, but I just thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, I was born in 89, so like we didn't care. We were just opening packs. We just collected them. And when I got back into the hobby, that's the same cards that I still have. My brother, I'll never forget, he opened up for Christmas a 2001 Fleer Ultra. And we put every card in a binder. And then I remember we were young still, but I was looking through his binder. And when I flipped over, I saw his number to 50 on the back. And it was a Derek Jeter number to 50 platinum medallion. And I was like, dude, this is a number to 50 card. Like, you need to pull this out. So it went in a screw down case. It sat there for probably 20 years. And when we got back into the hobby, he didn't get into it as deep as I have right now, but we graded that card and it got a PSA 10. And it was just like wild. It was like 100 card sub between me and all my buddies. And my brother got that 10 on this Jeter, and it was just like so cool.
It's cool having those memories where you guys have like kind of held on to the cards and then now at this point you get back into it. And it's like you said too, it's like you're sticking with it even though you have kids and they'll probably get to experience a lot of that same thing. It's a cool thing to see.
Yeah, it is. And I'll tell you another story about yard sale. So we went yard sale last week, and I walk up to this table, and it's 100 Pillsbury Doughboy things, salt shakers. And it's this old lady and this guy sitting there. He had like a bunch of Pepsi memorabilia, and I started asking him like, why are you selling all your Pillsbury Doughboy stuff? She's like, this is my doubles and triples of everything. And he's like, yeah, they're in the house over here. It's filling up the house. She's got to get rid of a bunch. And I said, hey, do you have any sports cards? And he was like, man, I had 10 5,000 row boxes. He was just talking, and he said, I got rid of all them in the 90s and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I wonder what was in those things.
Yeah,
a lot
funny.
of junk wax, but it's different now. It's we can go back and collect all these Topps Chrome and early Prisms and some of the 90s stuff that some of it doesn't come available. So when you kind of find it and it's in your lane, you pick it up and you're like, I love what you're doing with all the Topps Chrome stuff, picking up all these guys that to me are like fantasy football stars. That's what it is for me, and color matches and stuff like that. So that's really cool.
No, I appreciate it. And I think like before we shift to your Mount Rushmore, I was going to ask you a little bit about that. And this like the perfect segue here. So it seems like we both really like the finest, the Chrome. So based on your timeline you gave me, you necessarily weren't around when some of this stuff came out. You weren't in the hobby per se. So what do you know how like you got into that? Because like for me, it was looking for the players and then the sets happened to follow. Was it similar for you, or did you know to go back to finest and whatever because you had seen it elsewhere? How did you know to kind of go back? I was curious if you could expand on that.
Yeah, I would say it's the players that are in it. And a lot of it is fantasy football. We started playing fantasy football in 2000. So 2000 through, finest, what did it start, 2002?
Yeah, and not well.
Oh, 99. Right.
95, 02 is like I would say the modern-esque like refractors where you have like the gold, the X fractor. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, you and I have been talking about the 99 gold. So
yeah,
that right there. But it's the guys, and the Ravens have those. The 2000s when they got the Super Bowl, and then they got the 2012. So like for me, it's those guys are immortal. We got the immortal from when the franchise just started, and then all the guys that kind of like hung on, Ed Reed, Haloti Ngata, Suggs, they all got their ring in 2012 with Flacco, and that's kind of like the guys that I'm still looking for. So, and then you look at the prices, Austin. You look at the prices on these new guys that you have to pay, and you're like, I can pick up Chad Johnson or Calvin Johnson or LaDainian Tomlinson cards, Ray Lewis, the Joe Flacco's. Joe Flacco is my favorite PC because of the prices. So I'm looking for some big cards of his still, but they're just not, like a couple of them are on eBay, but a lot of them are just not listed anywhere. So this is going to be a nice shout out to try to bring some of those to market.
Yeah, that's the shout out here. Help Chris find very rare Joe Flacco cards. Joe Elite. It's funny though. I actually want to ask another question, follow up off that. So I wondered, do you have any idea why like the Flaccos don't pop up this stuff? Like my hypothesis for a lot of these players, like even you mentioned Chad Johnson, it's like you don't see a lot of the really rare stuff. And I wonder if because somebody has already grabbed it and stored it, or if it's partially because the prices never had this crazy hype like you saw with Brady, where all these rare cards started coming out of the woodwork because everyone saw the prices. Like, do you think it's a mix of that? Like, any idea like why it's so hard to find Joe Flacco? Is it because he's so elite that everybody wants to hold on to them?
Yeah, he's one of the only quarterbacks still in the league that has a Super Bowl. But I mean, his run for me is just it'll live forever. Every playoff time, his run comes up. But I mean, in an up market, you're going to see like cards coming out, right? People want to like make some money on it. But now that it's going down, some of the people, even with those nice cards, they're just like, I'll just hang on to them. So it's like, that's why everyone's like, all right, make a list and wait for the cards to come up, because not a lot of the good stuff is coming up. So I think that's probably mostly part of it.
Yeah. That's a good idea. Cause I bet you it's a mix of like, I'm into it so cheap, like a Joe Flacco, for instance, I'm into it so cheap. Why would I sell it when I love the card? And there's not an offer standing of like, a crazy amount of money if I auction this, right? Versus like with a Brady or something.
There's not a lot of Joe Flacco collectors, and I'm cool with that.
I keep picking on him. I'm not meaning to. I do. Obviously, I think he's a great player, but I do want to ask you about that just to keep going on Flacco, because you mentioned the modern guys, right? And I think it's funny to like compare Flacco to the modern guys, but I think it's a serious comparison because the prices on some of these players scare me for that haven't proven anything. And then Flacco's the perfect example of the player who literally was like a solid starter, not like obviously best in the league, solid starter, had one of the craziest Super Bowl runs ever. Like I think 11 touchdowns, 0 picks, Super Bowl champion. Yet his cards are worth, to be frank, just not much, right? It's like Matt Ryan comes to mind, right? Like these guys who don't happen to be like a top 5 all time. For some reason right now, their cards are really cheap. And the question is, are these new guys just too expensive or are these old guys undervalued? I think it's a little bit of mix of both. I don't know if there's a question there. That's just my thought. Do you have anything to add to that?
I'll specifically talk about the Joe Flacco stuff. And I was listening to, might have been Card Talk back in 2020 when I think Ryan Johnson was talking about there's a Flacco card for a guy that's won a Super Bowl, his NTRPA for $120, and actually knew the guy who had the card. And I think he sold it to me for $75 and it PSA 10. And I was like, oh, that's the first one in the pop report. So I picked up 3 more Flacco cards. 2 of them are raw. One of them's a nasty patch. I'll have to share that one with you. And then the other one was a BGS 9. Well, I submitted the other 2. So I have the 3 NTRPA PSA 10s on the pop report, which is just like wild to me. The cards are awesome, and they were all under $200. And I'm like, I love Lamar Jackson. I mean, he is awesome. He can win any game. But Flacco already did, and his card is $120. That's like
crazy. That's
the nostalgia there is wild. Yeah. So I mean, I even picked up. I think I have it over here. The a super fractor Joe Flacco for $200 from Finest. And here's actually that the Joe Flacco. Look at that patch, man. Like
I'm seeing like 6 color. Like Ravens have to have the craziest patch.
Yeah, it's 5 colors. Actually, I have one in the mailbox. I'm ready to share too. It's another 5 color exquisite RPA to 99. So it's just like some of these Flaccos are just epic nostalgia for me. Where I'm like, I gotta have these. A 2013 gold to 10, like for $50. Come on, it's just wild. So that's one reason he's so fun. But we didn't have quarterbacks, man. Before Flacco came, it was so tough. Like we had some guys filling in here and there, but Flacco almost didn't start. I think Troy Smith, who was the Heisman Trophy winner, got like sick the week before the season started. So Joe like got thrown into it. I mean, he was a first round pick, but he got thrown into it, and then he never lost it. Look at some of his first plays are hilarious. Like Joe Flacco caught a really long pass like down the sideline. They had him bootleg run it, like just crazy stuff that for a 6'5" quarterback like him he was doing. So yeah, he's so fun to collect, man.
That's awesome. I'm gonna pull up the Mount Rushmore here. We can talk on that, but I wanted to add like one point to what you just said, just to highlight for everyone listening. Like you made the perfect example comparing him to Lamar Jackson. I overlooked the fact that when I'm saying young quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson's in that book.
Yeah.
Like I can't even fathom what an NTRPA that's similar to the one you have for Flacco would be for him. I mean, we're talking, I would assume 5 figures. I don't know. I mean, that's just, there's no other question there. It's just like crazy to me. I mean, that's just all you can say about it. It's just crazy.
Too much, right? Too much. Like I'm hoping that Lamar does win the Super Bowl, and then in 10 years I can get his cards a lot cheaper. So we'll see.
Yeah, $120.
Yeah, they'll be out there, and he has a lot of cards too. So we'll see.
Awesome. So we pulled up here your Mount Rushmore. So again, just a reminder, some people won't have the visual. So if you can just guide me through this thing. This is your Mount Rushmore, your top 4 cards, not by value, but by your preference in your collection.
Yep.
Would you mind just stepping me through? And if you want to throw in any like acquisition stories, why this card's fun to collect for you, that sort of thing, please feel free.
Yeah. So I'll go left to right. That's the way that I kind of ranked them. Arena design cards are just my favorite. I collected mostly baseball in the 90s. And I had a little bit of football. I was pretty surprised at like some of the finest moments and stuff that I had, but everything goes back to the EX. I was collecting a lot of the EXceptionals of Kobe. I have his red, green, and his blue, but the Jambalaya is just it for me. I mean, it's not numbered. I don't care. It is one of the most beautiful cards. I love die cuts. I love inserts. So it fit every box for me. I sold a lot of stuff to get that this year. That was a card unattainable in 2020 and 2021 for me, even 2022. So that one is just huge for me. Easily my favorite card in the collection. I'll probably never sell that thing. I don't know much more to say about that. A little fun fact about my daughter. We named her Georgia, and we always looked at like nicknames for when we were going to, have a kid and stuff like that. And Gigi was it. So that was like my little like two Kobe Bryant type thing that we'll always have there. So that's a big connection for me there. I wanted to share that.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
It's funny how sports really intertwine with our life. When it comes to like kids, that's just really, really cool. And
Yeah.
like you said, incredible, incredible card. I'm not aware of what the pack odds are on this, but like you said, it wasn't numbered, but it's crazy high, crazy rare, obviously, right? I mean, I don't remember what the pack odds are, but they're pretty strong.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never gonna pull one, so this is
Yeah.
my only way of getting it. The wax is it's unattainable. So it's in the PC. I mean, the colors on it, man. The
Mhm.
action shot, like I share arena design stuff all the time because they've got. Well, I guess there's 3 of the 4 cards in this Mount Rushmore of their cards. So, that's about it on the Kobe, man. It's just my favorite card. It's a card I never thought I'd have that I do. So,
Is a Jordan in your sights long term at some point, maybe?
I mean, I didn't grow up watching Jordan, being
Mm.
born in '89, so it's a little different. I didn't grow up watching a ton of basketball. I mean, I was primarily football with the Orioles not being much my whole childhood. They were good in like '97. They had another good run in the late 2000s, which was an awesome experience. But like they're coming on now, but Baltimore football has been it. Like that's been it. And even on the baseball front, like you see the Alex Rodriguez, which we'll get to, like I was a fan of other teams. I remember being at the Grand Canyon. There's a picture of me with the Seattle Mariners hat on, and it's like that's just so wild to me. Like because I would never think of wearing another team's hat for football, but that's just kind of how it is. So I didn't watch a ton. Being in Baltimore, we have the Wizards. We didn't have the Wizards for a while, but we're not really fans of them down there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like somebody I follow. So I just looked up to Kobe, the way that he did everything. He was the closest to Mike. I love those YouTube clips where it's like Jordan shooting and then Kobe shooting. It's like identical. So like for me growing up, that was like the closest thing to it. So that's kind of why the Kobe's here. And the Jordan would be nice to have, but it probably wouldn't feel as much to me as the Kobe.
That's awesome. I appreciate the honesty. That's cool.
Yeah.
So next card, I'm seeing a Ray Lewis. Looks like a PMG. Could you extrapolate what that is?
Yeah, that's the number to 50. It got a 6. I can't figure out what's wrong with it. Could care less though. The card is just beautiful, man. I love the 99s. It's probably my favorite PMG. It's one, it's lower numbered, but 2, the reds and the greens are awesome. It's just like this goldness to it, the cursive of his name, everything to me, like the stance that he's in on it is just, it's killer, man. Like that's him right before he's about to win a Super Bowl in a year or two, So that card I was the underbidder on a PSA 9 on eBay, and I like have no clue what if I went higher what it would have been. I have no clue what that guy put it at. I think that's a Pop 1 PSA 9, so I'll probably never see that. But I'm so happy to have one. There was one that a guy on Instagram picked up at National, and I was at National, and I'm like, where the heck did he find this thing? So that was another one off the books. So this one popped up on Instagram, and I think I bugged him forever to get it, and I got it in my possession, and that's probably my favorite Ray Lewis. I have a couple cool Ray Lewises, but this is the top. He's one of my cornerstones. So those 2 are my who I like to collect is the Kobe's and the Ray Lewis.
Awesome. So before I interviewed you too, I pulled Instagram a little bit. I was like, hey, I'm going to be interviewing like a Ravens collector. And then also it'll be last week's episode once people listen to this, but the Tom Brady collector. And one of the questions the card connoisseur wanted to know is if you could just give your thoughts on the fact that, you collect Ray Lewis, and it sounds like Ed Reed is up there too for you. Could you explain how you feel about collecting defensive players when they normally don't get the type of hobby love that they probably deserve?
It's easy for the Ravens. The Ravens defense both years is probably the reason we won the Super Bowl. You look at the most recent Super Bowl, you had Haloti Ngata, Suggs, Reed, Ray Lewis. Just across the board, the team was just stacked. That run, we beat Andrew Luck, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Colin Kaepernick, who made it to the Super Bowl. He was a good quarterback. He was tough at that time. So, those guys are just immortal, man. I have a really nice Suggs collection. Reed, I have Reed cards they're ghosts, man. Reed cards are in a few collections that are just they're impossible to get. For some, even Ray Lou 52 collector, he has like cards that we're never going to see come to market, you know? Um, so for defensive, I love it. I'm trying to do a little bit of the 2000s Ravens defense with Saragusa and just start picking up some of those cards for those guys. Peter Bolware, I've been picking up some of his cards. So it's easy for me because I'm not worried about the value, man.
Yep.
It's like I just want the cards for the guys that I remember watching. I've gone to so many. I mean, me and my brother and my family, we've been fortunate. My dad has had season tickets to the Ravens since I think probably at Memorial Stadium when we moved to M&T Bank, and we've had those seats ever since. So I've been to so many games where it's like I've had heartbreak and I've had like so many good moments in that stadium, like where we never used to lose in that stadium. And it was because of the defense. You know, we had so many years where it was like, we announced the defense and that's what would get the crowd pumped. Ray Lewis came out for what, 20 years? You know, then Suggs took over, but it was the defense that got everyone pumped up. I mean, that if you've never been to a Ravens game at the start when Ray Lewis comes out, you've missed out, man. It is just, it's nothing like it.
I've seen it on YouTube, of course, but during games as well. But I will never see it live, unfortunately. But I know
It's
totally what
wild.
you mean.
Yeah. Actually announced his retirement on my birthday, January 2nd. And then we went to that game at home against the Colts. That was the wild card game, I guess. And then we also went up to New England when they won. I didn't go the year before when Cundiff missed a kick and Lee Evans missed a catch and all that. My brother went, and my brother was devastated. So we all went up the next year and we got it done.
Wow. So you saw two great games for the next player on your Mount Rushmore here. Could you tell us about the card? Tell us about the games.
Yeah. So Flacco, he called himself, you know, the greatest in the league or elite. That's what he called himself. And that was just so cool to me. I've seen every game that Flacco's ever played. He got us to Super Bowl. So like I said, he's an immortal for us. The 2013 select is just a set, man. I love it. I know a lot of people also love it. Chris Hose picked up the Le'Veon Bell, and like as soon as I saw that, this Flacco was sitting on eBay for so long, I just started hounding the seller, and I got it. Like I think within a couple days, I was like, I got to have this thing. And these 101s, man, when they're gone, they're gone. Especially in they're coming to my collection, they're not leaving. So that's why I got it. And if you haven't read the back of this card, go read the back of this black 101 Joe Flacco. It is the funniest thing. I'm just going to read it real quick.
Please do.
It says, pressure schmesher. The unflappable Flacco helped the Ravens beat the odds last season to capture the championship. So this is right after the championship. Somebody got to write this on the back of the card. The supremely confident quarterback isn't concerned about outside expectations or gloomy prognostications. Once again in 2013, his main focus is flinging the football and bringing up wins. Well, he never won another Super Bowl, but still, it's just he's an immortal. I keep going back to that word, so that's what he is for me.
No, I love that word because I haven't I don't know if I've heard anyone else say that, but I think that's a great freaking way to put this because like I'm just thinking Charles Woodson too. That's the parallel here maybe for Packer fans, for myself. It's like very similar to everything you've said so far where the cards don't pop up. The super rare cards are locked away. I mean, partially because he's a Michigan immortal as well. But just so cool. And I like I said, I like that wording. Love the freaking card. I love these 2013 golds. And I gotta say, this black is even better looking. So
yeah, I think I grabbed the immortal term from Charm City Tim. I'm pretty sure that's where I heard it, and I just ever since I think I heard it on the Stacking Slab podcast with him, and I think ever since I heard that it's been like helping me collect. It's been like looking at those who are the immortals that I can collect from the 2000s and from the last championship. So I'm ready for another set of immortals. So let's keep it going.
Man, I'm ready to run through a wall. I want to go collect Clay Matthews, Charles Woodson here.
Yeah, dude.
Good inspiration.
Those are the guys, man.
Yeah. It's really cool.
Yep.
Awesome. Could you touch on the last card here then too? I think you already said it's an Alex Rodriguez. What's the card? Where'd you get it? What do you like about it?
This came out of actually an Ed Reed collector's collection. He just bought a huge lot of stuff, and this was one of the cards that was in. I don't even know if it was in a penny sleeve. And he posted it on IG. He actually lived about 40 minutes from me, so I went and checked out the card and bought it from him. So it was cool to meet another fellow collector in person. But Alex Rodriguez was just the guy when I was 7 or 8 coming into the league. And when I looked back at some of the cards that I had just saved from my childhood, they were all A-Rods and then some Griffies. but it was mostly A-Rod. It's funny. I was trying to figure out like when he went um, Texas, and then I was just like driving. I was like, Google when did Alex Rodriguez go to Texas Rangers? And then they said what his contract was: 10 years, 252 million. And then they said it was the highest contract at that time, and in today's dollars, it would be 10 years, 397 million. And I was like, he was the guy, man. So I still was a huge fan of his when he went to the Texas Rangers, but when he went to the Yankees, I was done with him, But now, like that card, it was really tough for my last card in the Mount Rushmore because I had some Ovechkins. I had a nice Shaq. I just didn't know what to put up there, but this one like has a little bit more meaning to me because he was, I guess, my first PC back in the 90s. I actually brought one other card I wanted to show for Alex Rodriguez, and actually I'll show it to you when we get the screen down, but we used to open up cards at the Orioles games, and I pulled I can show it now, was a Leaf Lumberjack. I pulled this at the stadium of Alex Rodriguez, numbered to 500, and I've just kept it. And I was like, at the O's game, pulling an A-Rod card, and on the back it says, like Cal Ripken Jr., Alex is big, physical shortstop who can smash the ball. And I'm like, all right, so Cal Ripken is obviously a PC guy for me, but A-Rod is just like, he's the one that kind of like got me started, I feel like. So I have to have him in the Mount Rushmore. And that card is just beautiful. It's the first one of those years essential credentials that I have. And I like to have one card from each like really important set. Like that is just when you can kind of go through my collection and see, even if it's Flacco and 4 different cards, I like one card from each set. So having one Jambalaya, 199 PMG, 2013 black or gold, the essential credential. I like to kind of have one of each card instead of, trying to dig deep and just have that card from the same guy in every single set, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's cool. It's kind of like you get the iconic, you get the nice spread. You got the plate in front of you with a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And this is 98 future. It looks like. What's the numbering on these?
So that one's really cool because that one's numbered number 96 when Alex Rodriguez came out of 100.
Okay.
So I was kind of like, all right, it's number 96 on the back. Sometimes people are looking for jersey number. I'm like, 96 is rookie year,
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Just 4, when you put them up next to each other, it's just 4 beautiful cards.
Yeah, it's pretty badass. This looks very cool. I like the colors too. Your colors are it's like you got some yellows, some greens, some blacks, some reds. It's a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. So Chris, again, really appreciate you joining. So if we could wrap up here with a fast 5, are you good with that?
Yeah, let's do it.
So again, I mentioned I got some help from Instagram. People had really good questions. I might even jump in on some of these because they seem fun to answer. So I forgot to give a shout out here, but this first question is really smart. Came from @Mulligan_cards on Instagram. Be sure to follow him. Great account on there. Awesome dude as well. So the first one is a tricky one, and it'll get progressively easier. If you could only collect 1 year of cards across all sports, what year is it? I'm going to give you my answer in case this is a hard one. It took me a little bit. Yeah. So I decided on 2003 because Finest Topps Chrome, Bowman Chrome, and Topps Pristine are all there for football. Also, if I ever am like, I want to collect LeBron, he's there, Kobe's there. It just seems like a good year for cards. I think even Jordan is still playing in 03. Maybe 02 is his last year of cards, but I don't know. That was my idea. What are your thoughts?
Now, after you just went through that, a second year popped into my head, so I'm going to give both. It's whatever. 97 because it's just the best finest cards for me. I've been collecting some of the Kobe finest, so I have one that I just picked up yesterday, which is the number 289 gold creators of Kobe. I can't wait to get that card. And then a lot of them are out of my reach, but 97 has. Was it just one set or what year?
1 year across that year. You can take any, you can collect any of the sets.
Yep, it's got the metal, it's got the finest, it's got it all for me. So that, and then the next year would be 2012, because I like the Fleer retros, and you can get all the old inserts, the Noise Boys. When you go to the hockey, you get the metal PMGs, which is licensed. You get the Noise Boys, you get the electrifying. So you can get all those essential credentials. So 2012, and then you got the Prism. I only have one 2012 Prism. It is the Ray Lewis Gold, but 2012 is just like, it's just like when stuff changed. You can still get Topps Chrome, you can get Prism, but you can also get these Fleer Retro, which brought back all those 90s inserts, the Jambalayas and all that. So Yeah, that's
So
a
you
cool
must
one.
be like
That's
a
a good
prodigy.
question.
You must be like a prodigy or something, because I thought about this for 30 minutes and you came up with 2 examples that are better than mine in like 10 seconds.
Well, I
Nice.
noticed like all the years, like this was 98, 97, but Kobe's in all the 97 stuff. So that's cool.
Awesome. And then Zanu 23 Sports Cards wanted to ask what your favorite country you've ever visited is. And if you haven't left the country, maybe your favorite state. It's a good one too.
Before we had kids, we did a 12-day Italy trip, and then right after that, we got engaged right before we went to Ireland, and Ireland is awesome. We flew into Dublin, drove on the other side of the car, on the other side of the street, all the way to Galway, stayed at an awesome like penthouse there that we somehow got a crazy deal. It must have been like a brand new Airbnb. We stayed in that, and then we just went like south all the way back up to Dublin, and we just went with a group of friends, and the food and just like the people, just Ireland is awesome. That's somewhere we want to go back. And a fun fact, my son was born on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. So we have like a little affinity for that now.
That's really cool. Yeah, you have to take him someday.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then 3 more quick here. So here's mine. This is my idea. So if you could play professionally as a backup kicker, so you're never going to play at all, on any Ravens team, what year is it?
Oh gosh. 2011, because we missed the kick. And I got to make it, man.
And then you'd be starting next year.
yeah, we condiffed and that was it. I can't remember who we got after that, but
obviously Tucker has been much better.
Yeah, he's it, man. So we've been lucky. We've had Stover and we've had Tucker, and it's just like Legatron, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2011 Cundiff. Sorry, he's out. I'm in.
And then mine, one more, and then we have another one from Instagram. So what's your favorite fast food restaurant off the top of your head?
Probably Chick-fil-A, because that's like the only thing he'll eat right now.
Good call. And then Stacy Keebler collection wants to know, for once and for all, is Joe Flacco elite?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay.
I could go into way too many details, but the answer is yes. Anyone who knows.
Yeah, I know. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Chris. Again, really, really glad we got to do this. It's just awesome having the opportunity to chat with you online, and then now I get to see you for the first time and just talk. Yeah. I feel like we could talk for hours, so this is great. That means we'll have to get together again soon.
For sure. Yeah, I don't know if I'm doing national this year just with 2 kids. It's probably not going to happen. Atlantic City was an easy drive, so that was nice, even though it wasn't like everyone's favorite. But no, thank you for having me on. I feel honored to come on after those 3 guys that you've had on already. And it's just it's wild to be on here and chat about cards. So I appreciate it.
One final thing too, don't forget to follow Chris on Instagram. So it's at CDice Cards. So you can see in the title of the video or podcast episode.
I appreciate that, Austin.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chris.
All right, man.